Welcome back. All right. Ester Saint is in her first day of school. Dae has found her new sister and introduced Esther to her three best friends, Chris, Helen, and Eve. And they're on the way to calculus class. They're all good. They're all obviously good at math. And once they enter the class, they see Raven, the girl that Esther saved at the mall from being shot at. And so they quickly agreed with each other that Raven ought to be joining their little group of friends. Well, Raven was in the far corner at that moment, but they were going to talk to her. And also Chris York was in the class. And Esther had considered Chris a good friend. So they were going to let him sort of be in the group. And so the bell rang and the instructor walked in and said, "Oh, this is so exciting. We now have 6 girls and 6 boys in this advanced math class. First time in my teaching career that the girls have equaled the number of boys." And he said, why don't we do a competition? There's going to be 6 tests this semester. Each test would be scored at 100 points. And whichever team will get to choose a special dinner at the end of the semester that I'll pay for, either tacos or pizza or hamburgers, whatever you want. And we'll be have the girls against the boys. And so everybody got excited that because girls felt confident, and of course the boys did too. Usually boys are better in math, but this might be an exception. So Mr. Strong asked, so we have 2 new students. Raven, where are you? And Raven in the far back corner raised her hand and said, "My name's Raven. It's really Raven. It's not just what they call me. And it's my first semester here. My family has moved to this school district." And Mr. Strong welcomed her. And then Ester Saint, you're the last new face I see. And Esther said, "Yes, this is my first semester here too. And I'm glad to be here. And I have just moved into the district too." And Mr. Strong welcomed her. And so at the end of the class, the bell rang, and Ester and Dae and her 3 friends, they waited for Raven to come to the door, and they all approached her and said, and Dae spoke up and said, "Raven, we 5 girls would like you to join our club. It'll be 6 of us. And we're going to meet at the diner down the road after school. How would you like to be in our club?" And Raven looked at everybody, and they were all Gothic like her. She was Gothic. They all had lots of black on. And she looked at Esther, who was fair and blonde, and she said, "Is Esther in your group?" "Well, of course. Esther's my sister." That's what Dae said to Raven. Raven didn't question this. She just said, "Well, then, count me in. I'll be there." And that, she said, is fantastic. Welcome. And they all gave Raven a hug. And the final warning whistle blew, and then an announcement came on the speaker system, and it said all students should go to the gymnasium for a student all-body meeting. And so they all walked down to the gymnasium at the other end of the building. They sat in the lower bleacher section, and Chris York joined them too. He had been in the math class. He was very good at calculus. Excuse me. And so the 6 girls and Chris York, they sat in the same area, very close, and got excited. Raven said this has never happened in her 4 years at the other school, and they said, well, it's never happened at this school that they would have a all-student meeting on the second hour. And so at that moment, Mr. Mason, the school superintendent, walked up to a microphone and said, "For the first time in my recollection, we have a PA system that is now going to be working totally functional." And the students all broke out laughing, and they enjoyed that sense of humor. And Mr. Mason said, "And now for the reason you're all here. I want to congratulate all of you for a fantastic opportunity that you now have. We have a benefactor who's given our Scholastic Fund a huge, immense donation, and each and every one of you is now guaranteed a higher education." And I want to emphasize this, a higher education to either 4-year college, a 2-year college, a college of any type you want. It could be for culinary or mechanical, any type of higher education. This scholarship will pay for all expenses. That includes tuition, books and fees, and even transportation if needed. And he said the only condition is that from this point on, each and every one of you individually maintains a C average. And I want to emphasize this to you. From this point on, you need to maintain a C average. So Mr. Mason continued his lecture and continued to congratulate everybody. And by the end of the second hour, after emphasizing how lucky they were and that they had additional class counselors to aid the seniors in their efforts in choosing which direction they want to go in the future, Mr. Mason again congratulated everybody and said, please take advantage of this, because now your future can be a positive one, and all you have to do is grab it. And so, please do so. The bell rang. Mr. Mason said, all of you have a great day and congratulations again. The students slowly walked out and they were all talking about this fantastic opportunity that was now given them. And Ester and Dae and the three best friends and Raven, most of them had 2 or 3 more classes together. And on the 6th hour, they all ended up together in PE class. They had changed into some clothes in the locker room, shorts and a t-shirt. And they were sitting on bleachers in what they call the old gymnasium, a smaller gymnasium. And out walks the instructor, a new teacher to Grant High. And she stood in front of him and said, my name is Ms. Strong. It's my first semester here. I am here because my mother has cancer. And I left a very lucrative teaching job in another state to be here to aid in my mother's care and illness. So now all of you know something personal about me, and hopefully by the end of this semester I'll know something about all of you. Congratulations also about your new opportunity for higher education. She said, so I don't want to stand in the way of that. So any of you that would like to skip this class and go to a study hall, I will guarantee you a C at the end of the semester. Any of you that want to stay, I will guarantee you an A as long as you give me 100% effort. This semester will be nothing but running. We're going to start out running around the football field, and then we're going to expand it into running cross country. And by the end of the semester, we're going to run 6,000 meters, a cross-country run. All I ask is that you give me 100%, and you will be guaranteed an A for this class. So she smiled and looked up and down at everybody and said, all right, those that you want to run, head for the door and head for the track. Start running. She blew her whistle and said, run. Well, everybody in the class got up and ran for the door. I suppose everybody wanted an A. Dae, Esther, Raven, Eve, Helen, and Chris, they all sat there, everybody looking at Esther. Dae said to Esther, you know, I really hate running. I hate it. And Esther said, well, I know. It's hard. It's exhausting. It can be sweaty. It can be tiresome. But she said, you know, Dae, if we do this, I guarantee you by the end of the semester, we'll all be healthier and probably at least 1 dress size smaller. Dae looked at Esther and said, 1 dress size smaller, huh? That could be worth it. Raven, who was slightly chunky, not a lot, she said, I could use a dress size smaller too. Helen and Eve and Chris, they spoke up and said, well, Dae will follow you. So Ester could see everybody was on board with this. So she said, let's all do a special vow to run as hard as we can and show this class what the Gothic team can do. She put her two hands out and said, okay, on 1, 2, 3, let's say, Grant High forever. And she put her hands out. Everybody else did too, on top of each other. Ester screamed, 1, 2, 3, and they all went, Grant High forever. And they all giggled at it. Then they got up, and Ester said, let's run. And so they all ran for the door, and Ms. Strong, who had been very patient, said, okay, girls, congratulations. Now let's see what you can do. And so she followed them on out. Ester was leading all the 5 girls out to the football field, and they were going to run as hard as they could for about 15-20 minutes, and it slowed down. But by the end of the class, they had gotten out in front of at least 2/3 of the class. Ms. Strong welcomed everybody back, said, okay, girls, y'all did good for the first class. Congratulations. We'll see you tomorrow. Ester and Dae and all the other girls, they were in the locker room, everybody breathing very heavy except for Ester, who was in extremely fit condition.